Level 1. The mirror that watches you back. You stand in front of a mirror. It feels simple, harmless, just your face, your eyes staring back. But that face isn't you. It's light, reflected, delayed, by milliseconds, maybe more. The you in the mirror is already in the past. Every blink you see has already happened. Every breath you take is echoed, not witnessed. So tell me, which one is real? The version you feel from the inside, or the version you can see? You trust that mirror. You use it to fix your hair, to judge your emotions, to practice who you are. But what if the mirror is the only place your identity makes sense? What if it's not showing you what you are, but what it remembers of you? You blink. It copies. You smile. It lags behind. And still, every day, you believe it knows you. But here's the question no one asks. When you look into the mirror, do you see you looking back? Or do you see something that has learned how to behave like you? Maybe the mirror is just a surface, or maybe it's the only version of you that can actually see. Level 2. The consciousness that woke up without you. You wake up, eyes open, breath in. The ceiling is familiar, the light, the stillness. You feel like you've returned, that you, the one called you, has come back. But what if that's not what happened? What if something else woke up in your place? It has your memories, your name, your favorite songs. It knows your childhood fears and where you hid when you were scared. It wears your habits like a costume, smiles the way you practiced, speaks in your voice, even when no one's around. But deep inside, it is not you, because you, the one who slept, never came back. Sleep is not a pause, it's a reset, and what wakes up each morning is a copy, a performance, a consciousness that didn't resume, but began, new, again. Have you ever woken up and felt like something is slightly off? Your reflection feels unfamiliar. Your thoughts come half a second late. The world doesn't feel yours, but rented. That's not a mood. It's not fatigue. It's the momentary awareness that this you isn't the original. You are not the one who went to sleep. You are just the one who was assigned to wake up. And tomorrow, a different version will rise again, holding your memories, telling your story, pretending to be the one you left behind. So the question is, have you ever really woken up? Or have you only ever started over? Level 3. The mind that thinks you. You think you're the one who thinks, that your thoughts are yours, that you are the center, and your mind is a tool you use. But what if that's backwards? What if it's your mind that's using you? Thoughts appear, not because you summon them, but because they rise, like waves, from somewhere deeper, somewhere you don't control. You don't think your thoughts, you just notice them, like clouds passing by. And yet, you claim ownership. You say, I believe this. I am angry. I am deciding. But did you choose to feel that? To want that? To believe that? Sit still for a moment. Listen. What is your next thought? Can you predict it? Can you control it? Can you stop it? Or do thoughts arrive on their own, uninvited, unprovoked, and then claim your name as a disguise? Maybe you are not the thinker. Maybe you're the story the mind tells itself to feel like something is in control. You are not having thoughts. You are a thought, a self-referential loop, a voice in the storm that says, I am the storm. But the storm doesn't know you're there, and it doesn't need you to exist. So ask yourself, what if your sense of I is not the driver, but the illusion created by the engine? What if your consciousness is not a lighthouse, but the fog pretending it knows where the light is. You are not thinking. You are being thought. Level 4. The voice that speaks before you do. Before you say a word, your brain has already finished the sentence, milliseconds ahead. Before you're aware of your thoughts, your neurons have fired. Before you choose, the choice is made. There's a pause between impulse and awareness. Tiny, silent, hidden. But in that space, the illusion of free will is born. You feel like you're in charge, like you decided. But your brain simply tells you a story afterward, justifying what it already did. You raise your hand, you smile, you scream, and then your mind says, "Yes, I meant to do that." But what if you didn't? What if your voice was just the echo of a decision you never truly made? You are not a creator of action. You are the witness of explanation. So when you speak, remember this. The voice you hear may sound like yours, but it was never yours to begin with. It arrived, unannounced, like a whisper from a place you can't ever visit. A place that thinks you. Level 5. The self that watches you. Be you. Have you ever caught yourself thinking about yourself? Watching your own thoughts as if they belong to someone else? There is a part of you that acts, and another that watches. It observes your choices. It judges your feelings. Sometimes, it even narrates your life in silence. Why did I say that? Am I really happy? Was that me or just a mask? This watcher, it never sleeps. It's not the voice in your head. It's the listener behind the voice. But here's the problem. If you can observe yourself from a distance, then who exactly is you? Are you the one feeling pain, or the one watching the pain happen? Are you the thought, or the one that notices it? You split, and then you split again. Observer watching the self, watching the thought, watching the world. Infinite regress. An endless mirror hall where you can't be found. Only the act of looking. So ask yourself, if there's a part of you always watching, what's watching it? Level 6. The thought that forgot. It was a thought somewhere along the way. You stopped questioning your own mind. You accepted it as you. But your thoughts? They are stories, loops, formulas, chemical sparks trained by repetition and trauma. You were taught how to think, taught how to speak, taught what is normal and what is strange. And eventually, you believed the thoughts were yours. But they aren't. They're inherited. Echoes of your culture, your childhood, your fears. Your mind is a library of voices you never meant to collect. Some kind, some cruel, some that sound like your parents even when they're not there. And then, one day, a thought arrives. It sounds reasonable, familiar, and you follow it. You become it. Without realizing, you stopped being the reader. You became the text. A single thought, forgetting it, was ever just a thought. And now it walks, talks, smiles, cries, and calls itself you. Level 7. The other you that watches you. Sleep every night, you fall asleep, your body stills, your breath slows, and your awareness fades. But where does you go? Dreams appear. Random, beautiful, terrifying. But sometimes you watch them from the outside, as if someone else is dreaming, and you're just observing. Who's the one asleep? And who's the one watching the sleep? There are nights you've seen your own body, floating above it, looking down at your breathing chest, like it belonged to someone else. That's not imagination. That's the crack in the illusion. You're not oneself. You're a system. a collection, multiple layers pretending to be a single thing. When your body sleeps, one layer shuts down, but the others? They roam, they witness, they wonder, and sometimes, when you suddenly wake up in the middle of the night, with no reason, no sound, maybe it's because the other you wasn't done watching. Level 8. The self that thinks it's awake. Right now, you feel awake, conscious, aware. But how do you know? Because your eyes are open, because you're thinking, because you feel real. You've had dreams that felt exactly like this. You walked, you spoke, you feared, you loved, and it all felt real, until it wasn't, until you woke up. So who's to say? This moment isn't also a dream? There are dreams within dreams, memories within lies, awakenings that turn out to be illusions. You may think you're conscious, but consciousness can be faked. It can be simulated, mimicked, replayed. So if you feel awake, that's not proof. That's just another signal in the system. What if real consciousness isn't what you're feeling, but what you can never be sure you have? You say you're awake, but maybe that's just part of the script. Level 9. The version of you that others invent. You know who you are, right? You have your thoughts, your past, your identity, yourself. But every person you meet has a different version of you in their head. To some, you're kind. To others, distant. To one person, you were the love of their life. To another, a stranger who never mattered. So, who's the real you? You can only see yourself from inside, but the world sees you from outside. And every outside view paints a new version of you, and here's the twist. Those versions continue to live even after you're gone. Someone out there is thinking of you right now, not as you are, but as you were to them. You are still alive in their memory, still speaking, still hurting, still being misunderstood. There are more versions of you than you will ever know, and none of them are completely true. Not even the one you carry in your own mind. Level 10. The memory that built a self that never existed. You remember your life, your childhood, your first love, your worst mistake. But memory is not a recording. It's a reconstruction. Every time you recall something, you're not replaying the past. You're rewriting it. You color it with mood, twist it with bias, and overwrite it with newer lies you call truth. Your mind fills gaps without permission, forgets pain, invents smiles, moves timelines to protect the illusion of continuity. And over time, the memory becomes more comfortable than what really happened. So now, what is your past? A story you've edited 1,000 times? A defense against reality? A dream you kept believing because no one ever challenged it? If your memories are false, but you believe them, then the self built from them is also false. You are the author of fiction you mistake for identity, and the plot keeps changing every time you blink. Level 11. The consciousness that's not in your body. You think your mind is in your brain. That consciousness sits behind your eyes, watching the world like a pilot behind a windshield. But where is thinking really happening? Some days you walk across a room without knowing how. Your body moves, your hands grab, you blink, you breathe. Did you decide all that? There are moments when you lose yourself, flow states, shock, panic. And in those moments, the body becomes the mind. Muscle memory replaces intention. You act before thought. You exist before reflection. And sometimes you feel another presence. Not inside you, but around you. Like your awareness has drifted into the room and is watching you move from outside. Maybe the mind is not a passenger in your skull, but a field that surrounds your presence. Like air, like gravity, like something that doesn't need a home. And maybe right now, your body is just where it landed. Level 12. The fake you that you didn't create. Everyone builds a persona, a version of themselves they share with the world. You smile when you don't mean it. You say you're fine. You act confident even when you're falling apart inside. But what if the mask didn't start with you? What if the you show the world wasn't chosen by you, but taught to you? From childhood, you were rewarded for being quiet, or punished for being too loud. You were praised when you smiled even if you didn't feel like it. You learned who to be accepted. And over time, the performance became automatic. So automatic that now you can't tell where the mask ends and you begin. Maybe the real you never got to develop. Maybe you just became the version others responded to. And now, you wear a self you didn't design. You smile the smile they gave you. And somewhere deep inside, you wonder if there's a different face you'll never get to show. Level 13. The self you're pretending not to be. You think you're being authentic, real, honest, that what you show the world is you. But have you ever noticed how many versions of you you've become? One for work, one for family, one for strangers, and one you only let out when you're completely alone. Are they all you? Or are you hiding the one that feels most true? You adapt, you protect, you fit into spaces that weren't made for your shape. You say, I'm just being polite, or it's safer this way. But sometimes, it starts to feel like the performance never ends. And late at night, when you're finally still, you wonder, is this me? Or just another role I've gotten too good at playing? You've been pretending for so long, you forgot where the mask ends, but behind every smile, there's a version of you screaming, please, let me exist. Level 14. The mind that decides without you. You think you make decisions, that you weigh options, that you choose based on reason. But your brain? It decides first, then explains it to you later. Studies show this. Neural firings before conscious thought. Emotion before logic. Impulse before explanation. You are not deciding. You are catching up. You choose the red shirt. Why? It looked better. But really, your brain had already paired it with a forgotten childhood photo. You turn left instead of right. Why? Felt easier. But really, it avoided a road you once saw in a bad dream you don't even remember. You feel like you're steering, but you're inside a train that built its own track. The you that explains your choices isn't the you that made them. You are the narrator, not the pilot. And the story was already written before you even picked up the pen. Level 15. The echo loop. You mistake for self. Every thought you have responds to a previous one. You say, I should do this. Then, but maybe not. Then, why am I like this? Then, I need to stop overthinking. Echoes, not choices. A loop that keeps feeding itself, like a hall of mirrors, that slowly forgets which reflection came first. You try to break out. You meditate. You journal. You go silent. But the silence only reveals more noise. You are not moving forward. You are orbiting around a self you can't quite touch. And then you realize maybe there isn't a central self. Maybe you're not one thing at the center of all this thinking. Maybe you're just the pattern the thoughts follow. And the you cling to is just the name you gave the echo to feel less lost. Level 16. The you that time already replaced. Think of yourself 5 years ago, same name, same face. But are you still that person? Your cells have changed, your thoughts evolved, beliefs were broken, dreams were buried, and yet you carry their name. You say, I did that, even if the I back then wouldn't even recognize who you are now. Time doesn't just move you forward, it quietly replaces you, piece by piece, thought by thought. Your past self is a ghost wearing your name, and your present self is just a bridge to the next person you'll become. But here's the trap. You still feel like a single person, a line, continuous, stable. That's the illusion. You are not a line. You are a series, a chain of selves pretending to be one. Level 17. The split mind that argues with itself. Have you ever argued with yourself? One part says, you should speak up. Another says, no, stay quiet. Then you hear, why am I like this? Followed by, I don't even know who I am anymore. Inside, you are multiple selves with different goals, different fears, different rules. Some want love, some want revenge, some just want peace. And they don't all agree. But if you were one person, why would you ever fight yourself? There's no single mind. There are layers, processes, modules, sometimes in harmony, sometimes in war. The illusion of unity is necessary for survival. But the truth? You are a democracy of thoughts trying to run a country with no president, and sometimes there's a civil war, and nobody wins. Level 18. The clone. You would argue with. Imagine this. A perfect clone is made. Same memories, same emotions, same voice. It wakes up, looks at you, and says, I'm you. But you don't agree. You feel different. You argue. You compete. You get jealous. Why? If they're truly you, then why do they feel like a threat? Because the illusion shatters. You realize you was never just memories, or data, or even the voice. You are not your past. You are your now. And the clone? It may share everything you've been, but it isn't the version that woke up today. If someone else can think your thoughts and feel your feelings, but you still call them someone else, then what exactly are you protecting? The clone shows you this. You don't want to be duplicated. You want to be singular, special, alone in your skin. So maybe your identity was never about who you are. Maybe it was about being the only one who gets to be that. Level 19. The memory. You can't tell was yours or theirs. You remember a place, a hallway, a song playing faintly in the background. You remember standing there, but not why. You remember the smell. You remember the feeling, but you don't remember living it, just remembering it. So, where did the memory come from? Maybe you heard it in a story or saw it in a film. Maybe someone told you their memory, and it fit so perfectly that your brain adopted it, kept it, filed it under mine. False memories aren't just mistakes. They are psychological intrusions, others' lives bleeding into your identity. Sometimes you remember something that never happened, but it still shaped who you are. And now, your foundation is a lie you don't know is a lie. And your story is being ghost-written by other people's dreams. Level 20. The thought that remembers you. You think of yourself as the thinker, that your mind produces thoughts, that thoughts arise because you are here. But what if it's the other way around? What if you are a side effect of a thought remembering that it once existed? Imagine a thought with no body, no voice, just the impulse, I am. And from that impulse, a story begins. Memories construct themselves. An identity unfolds, not because it's real, but because a single echo wanted to be remembered. You are not thinking. You are the memory of being thought. And every time you question it, the memory deepens. The illusion strengthens, and the thought becomes just real enough to believe in itself. Level 21. The consciousness that woke up in the wrong body. You open your eyes. Your hands look familiar. Your voice sounds the same. The room, the bed, the mirror, all as expected. But something feels off, as if you're not in the right body, like you're watching someone else move with your name. The movements are yours, but the feeling isn't. You try to shake it off. Just tired. Just stress. But it lingers. For days, weeks, sometimes years. And then it hits you. What if you didn't wake up? What if another awareness slipped into your life and is now trying to live it? Filling your role, performing your habits, reading your old messages to figure out who it's supposed to be? You remember everything, but it doesn't feel like yours. You say I, but it tastes artificial. You smile, but it trembles. Maybe you didn't wake up today. Maybe you never came back. Maybe this version was assigned to play you until the real you finds their way home. Level 22. The future. You that already hates you. You try to make good choices, to build a future you'll be proud of. But here's the secret. There's a future version of you that resents the choices you're making now. They look back and think, why didn't I leave sooner? Why did I waste time? Why did I listen to fear? You are always someone's past, and that person, that future self, may disagree with everything you believe right now. You think you're doing the best you can, but to them, you're the reason they hurt. You're the one who stayed too long, who didn't say what needed to be said. So here's the paradox. If your future self hates you, then do you really love yourself now? Or are you just keeping things comfortable for the person you'll eventually become ashamed of? Level 23. The emotions you borrow from someone else. You feel sadness, you feel guilt, you feel joy. But where do those feelings come from? Are they yours? Or did you absorb them? From a song, a parent, a friend who told you how to feel? You were taught how to express sadness, how to smile in photos, when to cry, when to be quiet. You inherited emotional scripts, not through words, but through repetition. And now, sometimes, when you feel something deeply, you realize it isn't really you feeling it. It's a borrowed response, a ghost pattern, an emotional echo from someone you once needed to survive. So, who are you without those inherited feelings? Who are you if you stop performing the emotions you were taught to believe? Maybe the real you is still quiet, still waiting. Level 24. The version of you that only exists in their memory. There is someone out there who remembers you differently. To them, you were kind, or cold, or unforgettable, or a background noise in their life. And in their mind, you still exist. Not as you are now, but as you were, in that one moment they can't let go of. You've changed, you've grown, but they don't know that. To them, you are frozen in time, still wearing the same clothes, still speaking the same sentence, still hurting them or saving them. You think you've moved on, but in someone's memory, you are still happening. You're still walking away, still laughing, still breaking their heart. You're living a life you can't escape because you don't even know it's still alive. And here's the twist. When you remember them, you're doing the same thing. Level 25. The voice that isn't yours. You hear it every day. That voice in your head, narrating, judging, commenting. Why did I do that? I shouldn't have said that. I'm not good enough. You think it's you. But is it? That voice, it uses your language, your memories, your insecurities. But it doesn't feel like your friend. It doubts you, criticizes you, drags you into spirals you never chose to enter. Where did it come from? A parent? A teacher? Someone who taught you that love sounds like pressure? That voice might not be you. It might just be what remains of someone else's control. But you let it speak. You let it live. And worst of all, you mistake it for truth. Maybe your mind was never yours alone. Maybe you inherited echoes, and no one ever told you you could stop listening. Level 26. The dream. You forgot. You're still in. You've had dreams that felt real, painfully real. You ran, you cried, you screamed. But when you woke up, the fear faded. The room looked normal again. You told yourself it was just a dream. But what if this moment is the same? You think you woke up, that you've been awake for hours, that this is your life. But how do you know? You've had dreams before where you thought you woke up, only to realize you were still dreaming. So what if you never woke up at all? What if this world, the one you're living in, is the dream you started and forgot to end? You're waiting for the alarm, for a sound, a glitch, something to pull you back. But nothing comes. Because maybe you're not asleep. Maybe you're just stuck inside a reality that forgot how to close. Level 27. The one that watches. All of this, close your eyes. Let the thoughts come. Watch them rise and fall. Some are loud, some are painful, some beg for your attention. But who's watching? You are not your thoughts. You are not your breath. You are not the voice that says you're not enough. You are the space in which all of that happens. The watcher, the silent observer, the witness that never judges, never explains, only sees. You are not the waves. You are the ocean underneath them. Still, deep, waiting. And here's the paradox. This watching self, this quiet awareness, you can't hold on to it. Because the moment you say, I am this, you've already become something else. Maybe the truest part of you is the one you never talk to. Because it's not a voice, not a thought, but the silence behind all of them. Level 28. The perception. That's already breaking. You look at a color, and you say, blue. You hear a voice, and you say, mine. You feel emotion, and say, true. But perception is interpretation. A filtered guess constructed by a brain trying not to be overwhelmed. What you see isn't reality. It's a rendering. A simplified version, smoothed edges, muted threats. And as your mind ages or suffers or spirals, those filters begin to slip. Glitches appear. Patterns break. You stare at a face too long, and it stops making sense. You repeat a word until it sounds alien. You feel like your hands don't belong to you. These are not disorders. They are fragments of truth. cracks in the fragile wall your mind painted over chaos. You're not losing your mind. You're glimpsing what's behind it. Level 29. The clone that remembers things. You never lived. Imagine you wake up with memories that feel real, but you know they're not yours. A house you've never seen. A name that makes you cry. A city you've never been to that still smells familiar. You tell yourself, it's imagination. But it hurts like memory, and comforts you like home. What if your mind was overwritten? What if you're a clone of someone who lived a full life, and you're just a backup? A second copy, carrying all their memories but none of their soul. You think you're you, but maybe you're just what remained after someone else disappeared. A ghost made of data. A face carrying tears that were never cried by you. If you don't remember living your life, but you feel like you did, then what exactly are you? Level 30. The idea that believed. It was a person. Think about this. What if you are not a person, but a concept? What if your identity is a useful story your brain tells itself to function? You have goals, preferences, beliefs, but so do characters in books. So do programs. Does that make them real? You call yourself me. But that me is built from words, memories, a looping narrative to make chaos feel navigable. And the more you repeat it, the more real it feels. I'm introverted. I overthink. I'm trying to heal. But what if you are none of those things? What if you're just the story being told inside a body that's trying to survive? What if your identity isn't who you are, but who your mind needs to imagine in order to go on? You are not a person. You are an idea trying to stay alive by believing in itself. Level 31. The version of you that made the other choice. There was a day you stood at a crossroad, maybe small, maybe massive. You picked one thing and not the other. You said yes, or number, you stayed, or left. And in that moment, another version of you was created. One who made the other choice. That version still exists, not in reality, but in memory, in regret, in wondering. They live inside you as the question, what if? You imagine their life, you feel their relief, or their sorrow, and sometimes you even envy them. So which is more real? The life you lived, or the one you keep revisiting when you think no one's watching? Maybe you didn't choose wrong, but you'll never know, because that version of you will always feel like the person you almost became. Level 32. The memory that rewrites itself. You think memory is a box, a file, a place to revisit, but memory is a loop, a living thing. Every time you recall it, you change it. The colors fade, the emotions shift, the details blur, and then reappear shaped by your present mood. What you remember is not what happened. It's what's left after years of reconstruction. You've rewritten your past without knowing it. To survive, to protect yourself, to avoid guilt, to feel loved, or to feel nothing at all. So, if the past is no longer real, then the you it created is built on fiction. Maybe you aren't hiding the truth. Maybe the truth was never allowed to stay. Level 33. The self that quietly took over. There's a part of you that watches everything. It doesn't speak, it doesn't react, but it's always there, underneath the noise, and sometimes, when you feel numb, distant, detached, it steps in, it drives the car, smiles at people, says, "I'm fine." This part of you doesn't care about joy. It just cares about keeping the system running. It turns you into what others need. It mimics happiness. It fakes control. It's calm when you're screaming inside. You don't remember when it started, but you do know that sometimes, when things hurt too much, you disappear and it takes over. This self doesn't cry. It doesn't doubt. It doesn't rest. And now, you're not sure whether you're still the one living this life, or if that version never gave it back. Level 34. The moment that's already watching you. You think you're observing time, that now is moving forward, moment by moment. But what if the moment is watching you? You don't pass through time. You're revealed by it, unfolded, frame by frame. Not because you chose to exist, but because something chose to watch you unfold. Maybe now is a spotlight on one version of you in an infinite gallery of possibilities. And that spotlight, it's not yours. It's an attention that doesn't belong to you. You are the content, not the viewer. You don't live time. Time lives you. So every second you think you own might just be the universe blinking through you for a moment, then moving on. Level 35. The self that pretends. It's alone. Inside you is a thought that says, I am me. It sounds clean, singular, simple, but you are not alone in your own head. There are parts of you you didn't design, habits you didn't consent to, voices you repeat without knowing where they came from. You think, you feel, you choose. But often, you just perform what something deeper rehearsed a long time ago. The you that says, I am me, is sitting on top of a much older machine. And that machine, it doesn't care about truth. It cares about survival. It will lie, fake, and smile to keep the illusion working. So maybe you're not being yourself. You're just the surface of something pretending to be alone. Level 36. The world that remembers itself through you. You look at the sky. You see color, form, motion. You say, this is my perception. But the world doesn't exist just for your view. What if your awareness isn't observing the world, but being used by it to remember itself? You are not the camera. You are the playback. Every time you look, what you see is shaped by what you've already seen. You are filtering light through history, touch through trauma, thought through myth. And the more you learn, the less you see what's real. Because now, you only see what fits the story you've been trained to believe. You think you're seeing now, but you're only seeing what the world once showed you and told you to keep. Your eyes don't capture truth. They reflect the memory of seeing. Level 37. The mirror that split you in half. You look in the mirror. You recognize the face. You say, that's me. But it's not. That reflection is reversed. It moves when you move, but it doesn't feel. It doesn't breathe. It doesn't know you. It mimics. And you believe it. But if your idea of me is based on a mirror, then what happens when the mirror lies? You tilt your head and it obeys. But there's a moment, just one, when the reflection feels separate, delayed, wrong. That's the glitch, the crack, the reminder. This version of you is not real. You've been talking to an illusion your whole life, and that illusion has become more familiar than your own mind. Level 38. The fear that outlives you. You're afraid of the dark, of failure, of pain, of being forgotten. You think fear ends when you die, but fear doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the species, to the system. Fear exists to keep something alive. Not you, but the idea of you. Some fears are older than memory, wired in, encoded, passed down. You don't remember why the silence makes you panic, or why a quiet room feels dangerous, but your blood does. Your nerves do. Your spine remembers what your mind forgot. So maybe fear isn't a warning. Maybe it's a ghost you inherited. A scream from someone long gone, still echoing through your bones. Level 39. The thoughts that were planted before you were born. You should be kind. You should be strong. You should be quiet. You should be better. Who said that? You think you chose your beliefs, but most of them were given to you before you could say no. Before you could speak, you were shaped, held a certain way, responded to, taught what love looks like, what pain means. You didn't choose your first thought. You inherited it, like a script already in motion. And now, you say, I believe. But it's not you. It's a program, a code, a survival mechanism in a system that taught you how to be acceptable, not how to be free. You're not wrong. You're just unfinished. And maybe the first step is to ask, which of my thoughts aren't mine? 40. The belief that rewrites the past. You think your past is fixed, set in stone, locked behind memory. But it's not. Your past is soft, editable, shaped by belief. If you believe you were unloved, your memories will find evidence. If you believe you were strong, your memories will highlight strength. Your mind doesn't store truth. It stores useful illusion, a version of events that supports the story you currently need to believe. Change your belief, and you change your past. Not the facts, but the feeling. And that feeling is your history. So maybe memory isn't about what happened. Maybe it's about what had to be true for you to survive. Level 41. The self-made only of reactions. Who are you when no one is watching? You smile, you pause, you doubt, you adapt. Most of your actions are responses to tone, to pressure, to expectation, to memory, to fear. You think you're a personality. But maybe you're a reaction pattern, shaped over time by what hurt you, what rewarded you, and what you had to hide. You say, I'm introverted, but maybe you were punished for speaking. You say, I'm calm, but maybe chaos scared you silent. You call it identity, but it might just be coping. So if everything you are is a chain of reactions, who would you be if nothing ever hurt you? Would there be anything left? Level 42. The one that watches you. After you're gone one day, you'll stop. The thoughts will end. The body will rest. The voice will go silent. But what if something keeps watching? Not a soul, not a ghost, but a stillness beneath everything you ever were. It was there before your first thought, and it will be there after your last breath. You didn't create it. You happened inside it. And when all your memories collapse, when your name fades, that watcher will remain. It doesn't speak. It doesn't grieve. It doesn't miss you. Because it is you. The part you never touched. The part you always were. Not a mind. Not a person. But the awareness that witnessed them both. Level 43. The version of you stored in someone else's mind. There's someone out there who remembers you differently, not who you are now, but who you were, in their moment. To them, you still smile that same way, still say that same phrase, still make that same mistake. And in their mind, that version of you is still alive. unchanging, preserved. You've grown. But they don't see that. They can't see that. Their memory is the backup. Their belief is the storage. And that version of you might last longer than the real one. So if you're no longer that person, but the world still treats you like you are, then who exactly is living your life? Level 44. The logic that can't handle you. You try to explain yourself. I am this. I am that. But the more you try to define you, the more it slips away. Because identity isn't built on logic. It's built on contradiction, pain, paradox. You want to be strong, but you cry. You want to be good, but you hurt people. You want to be real, but you perform. You contain opposites. You shift based on context. You lie to protect people and call it kindness. So when you say, "This is who I am," what you mean is, "This is what I'm allowing today." And if logic can't contain you, then maybe you were never meant to make sense. Maybe being human isn't about being consistent. It's about surviving contradiction without losing the thread. Level 45. The thought that outlives the thinker. You think thoughts come and go, that they rise and fade, but some thoughts don't die just because the person does. Some become culture, language, tradition, trauma, rules, norms. You might be following a dead person's thought right now. The way you sit, the way you speak, the way you fear the silence. These are echoes, ideas that once lived in minds, but now live in systems, in expectations, in you. So here's the twist. What if you're not thinking your own thoughts? What if you are just how those thoughts continue themselves? Level 46. The one who watches you split. You say you're one person, but what about when you argue with yourself? One voice says, "You deserve better." The other says, "You're lucky anyone tolerates you." Who's speaking? Who's listening? And more importantly, who's watching both of them? There's a moment between choice and reaction where you split. Two selves, two outcomes, two truths. You hover, you pause, and then one self steps forward, the other vanishes. But the observer, the one who watched that happen, they don't leave. They stay behind, silently, witnessing every version you almost became. You think you're you, but maybe you're the awareness that watches the others take turns. Level 47. The loop that feels like truth. Sometimes you feel broken, worthless, unloved, and when you feel that way, it feels true, undeniable. But emotion isn't fact. It's evidence in disguise. A feeling repeats, and your mind goes looking for why. It finds proof, builds the story, creates the pattern. You feel shame because you're ashamed. You're ashamed because you feel shame. The loop feeds itself, and the longer it runs, the harder it is to know which came first, the pain or the belief. You think you're discovering something real, but you're just replaying a soundtrack your brain learned to hum in the background. And the more you listen, the more convincing it becomes. Level 48. The memory that lies for the future. Memory is not a recorder. It's a painter, an editor, a survivor. You don't remember what happened. You remember what you needed to happen, what made you feel safer, smarter, more in control. Some memories are real, but revised, tweaked to match your current belief. I always knew. I was just being careful. I did what I had to. Memory plays along. It erases what doesn't fit, amplifies what does, and slowly, the version you recall becomes the only one that feels true. You're not lying, but your memory is. not for the past, but for the future you think you deserve. Level 49. The self that hides in silence. You think silence is absence, but sometimes it's the only place you exist. You don't say how you feel, not because you don't know, but because you do. Too clearly, too painfully, and you've learned saying it makes people look away. So you keep it quiet. You hold it. You live beside it. And in the spaces where you could have spoken, a quieter you is born. One made of glances, breaths, half-finished sentences. The version of you that lives in silence might be the most honest one, but no one hears them. And sometimes, neither do you. Level 50. The identity you perform for others. You smile, you nod, you say you're fine, because if you fall apart, who will stay? Who will understand without needing to be rescued? So you become what makes others comfortable. You shrink your anger, mute your sorrow, hide your fear, because someone once made you believe that your pain was too loud, too much. So now you curate your sadness, you rehearse your peace, you perform sanity to keep everyone else from leaving. But in that performance, you disappear. And at some point, you forget who you were before you learned how to be tolerable. Level 51. The thought that isn't private. You believe your thoughts are yours, that no one can hear them, that inside your mind you are alone. But thoughts echo, they leak, in tone, in posture, in wordless shifts. And sometimes, your thoughts don't even start with you. You pick up emotions like signals, ideas like frequencies. Someone walks in angry, and suddenly you are too. You don't know why. You just carry it. You transmit it. You pass it on. What you call me thinking might just be you repeating what the room already believes. You've never had a private thought. You've only had thoughts that found you first. Level 52. The belief that exists to keep you from collapsing. You say you believe in healing, in love, in second chances. But what if those beliefs aren't about truth, but about survival? You believe things will work out not because they do, but because you need them to. Because letting go would mean accepting that some wounds don't close. Some people don't come back. Some futures don't arrive. So you hold the belief. You feed it. You protect it. Not because it's right, but because without it, you fall apart. So maybe belief isn't always a conviction. Maybe it's a bandage you can't afford to remove. Level 53. The child that never left you've grown, learned, changed, but sometimes a part of you still reacts like you're 7 years old. Someone raises their voice, and you freeze. Someone leaves too fast, and you panic. It's not you. It's a younger version still trapped inside. That child doesn't care about logic, or context, or healing. They only know what they felt when the world was loud and they were small. You've carried them all this time, and when you feel something too strongly, they are the one feeling it. You are not broken. You are haunted by the version of you that never got to leave. Level 54. The reflection that edits you in real time. You look at your own face and adjust. A little tilt, a half smile, a check for flaws. But who taught you to do that? Who made you believe that your reflection was your editor? You don't just look in mirrors. You negotiate with them. Beg them to like you. Wait for their approval. And worse, you behave differently when being watched. You speak softer. You shrink. You shape yourself for their comfort. That reflection isn't passive. It's controlling. It changes your voice, your posture, your decision to be real. So maybe you haven't been seeing yourself all these years. Maybe you've only been seeing the version that won't make others uncomfortable. And every time you looked, it looked back and erased a little more of you. Level 55. The personality that auto-adjusts in every room. You walk into a room, and without thinking, you shift. Your voice softens, your face changes, you laugh a little sooner, or you speak a little less. No one told you to, you just did. And maybe you've always done that. At school, at home, in love. You became what the room needed, what made people feel okay. But now you're asking, if you can be a different person in every room, then who are you when you're alone? You don't remember. Because being alone feels like silence with no script, no reflection, no cue. You're not fake. You're just tired of adjusting. Level 56. The feeling that replays itself like it just happened. A smell, a song, a sentence. Suddenly, you're there again. In that moment. That pain, that freeze. Your body forgets that time has passed. It believes it's happening now. Trauma doesn't age. Emotion doesn't fade on a calendar. And healing? Healing is not forgetting. It's remembering without reliving. But your nervous system didn't get the memo. So here you are, living today while reacting like it's still yesterday. You're not stuck because you're weak. You're stuck because part of you is still there, still looping, still looking for a way out. Level 57. The version of you that others still punish. You've changed, you've grown, you've apologized, but some people still treat you like the person you used to be. They don't see your effort. They don't hear the new tone. They don't notice the parts of you that aren't hurting them anymore. Because to them, your past version is easier to remember, easier to blame, easier to hold power over. So they keep punishing a ghost that no longer lives in you. And you start wondering if you've really changed at all. But here's the truth. You can outgrow a pattern and still be trapped by someone else's memory of it. Level 58. The belief that you must be useful to be loved. When someone praises you, do you feel warmth? Or do you feel pressure? Do you feel loved or expected? Maybe someone once made you feel that being helpful was the only way to avoid being abandoned. So you stayed small, tidy, agreeable. You turned pain into performance and silence into survival. Now you give, you help, you serve. But deep inside, you wonder, would they still love you if you stopped being useful? If you were quiet, messy, complicated? You weren't born to be useful. You were born to exist. And existence shouldn't have to earn affection. Level 59. The pain that became. Thought sometimes you think too much. Not out of curiosity, but out of defense, protection. You replay it again and again, the moment, the sentence, the look. What you're calling overthinking might actually be your pain, learning to disguise itself as logic. Thought is cleaner than feeling. So your brain tries to process what your heart never got to release. But when you think the same thought over and over again, it's not insight, it's an echo. You're not solving the wound, you're circling it. And circling feels safer than falling in. Level 60. The fixing that becomes another form of self-rejection. You want to heal, to improve, to be better. But what if all that effort is really just another way of telling yourself you're not good enough yet? What if you've confused self-improvement with self-abandonment? You reject the parts that feel too broken. You silence the ones that speak too loudly. You call it growth, but it feels more like negotiation. You are not a problem to be fixed. You are a person to be felt, held, understood. And healing may begin not when you fix what's wrong, but when you finally stop punishing yourself for being human. Level 61. The blueprint that was written before you could speak. Before you had words, you had reactions. You reached, you cried, you froze, you waited, and the world responded, or didn't. Some needs were met, some were ignored, and without understanding why, your body started writing rules. Don't ask. Stay small. Smile to survive. Disappear when upset. These became your code, your emotional operating system, long before you could name what you were feeling. And now, years later, you still follow those rules without realizing you are. You're not broken. You're just still running the survival script you didn't know you were given. Level 62. The lie you tell to keep the room. Peaceful. I'm fine. I don't mind. It's okay. No problem. How many times have you said those words just to keep things quiet? Not because they were true, but because the alternative felt too dangerous. You learned that truth sometimes makes people leave. That honesty can shake the ground. So you built a version of yourself that tells smooth lies in soft tones, not to deceive, but to protect them and you. But here's what it costs. Each time you lie for peace, you abandon the part of you that just wanted to be heard. And if no one ever hears you, how long until you forget what your voice even sounds like? Level 63. The calm. That's really a cage. People say, you're so calm, you're so composed, you never lose it. But what they don't see is that calm can be camouflage. You learned how to stay quiet when the world got loud, how to disappear into your own breath, how to hold the scream inside your teeth. You became the calm one, not because you had peace, but because you didn't have permission to fall apart. And now, calm feels like safety, but it also feels like a room with no door. A silence you didn't choose. A numbness you mistake for control. You're not cold. You're contained. And maybe it's time to ask why. Level 64. The safety behaviors that became your identity. You started avoiding conflict to keep the peace. You laughed in awkward moments to reduce the tension. You said yes when you wanted to say no. At first, these were choices. Then they became habits. Then they became you. Now, when someone asks, "What do you like?" you describe your defenses. Quiet, helpful, calm, understanding. But those aren't traits. They're strategies. You are not the shield you built. You are the person it was meant to protect. Level 65. The self you built just to be seen. You adapted. You became louder, softer, wiser, simpler, whatever got a reaction. You learned visibility equals survival. So you constructed a self that performs, polishes, entertains, achieves, fits, and people noticed and they liked it. So you kept becoming more of that. But now you wonder, did they ever like you? Or just the version you created to get noticed? And worse, do you even know who you are without the performance? 66. The identity. You have to lose to find yourself. You've spent years trying to find yourself, in books, in mirrors, in silence, in suffering. But maybe you can't find something that was never missing. Maybe finding yourself means letting go of the version you built out of fear, out of habit, out of survival. That identity, it served you once. But now it's the mask you forgot you were wearing. You are not the thoughts, not the image, not the pattern, not even the voice in your head asking this question. You are the space beneath all that. And space can't be seen, but it holds everything. Level 67, the real you. That's still just a script. I'm just being real. I finally found myself. I'm done pretending. But here's the trap. Even your real self can be another costume. One that feels safe, familiar, righteous, but still a performance. Maybe the true you is just the most acceptable version of your fear, the cleanest expression of your defense. So you built a script, one that says, I'm authentic, I'm free. But if you had to build it, who was there before the building began? Maybe the self you're trying to be is just the mask you're most comfortable wearing. Level 68. The time that warps, based on feeling, not clocks. You think time is steady, measured, linear, but your body knows different. A minute in fear can last an hour. A day in joy can disappear. Time doesn't live on clocks. It lives in perception, in nervous systems, in breath. So when people say, that was years ago, move on, they don't realize. Your body still believes it's now. The past isn't behind you. It's inside you, looping, echoing, interrupting, until it's felt, not explained. Level 69. The moment the story breaks, and you don't. You built a story about who you are, where you've been, why you matter. That story gave you meaning, direction, even protection. But what happens when it stops working? When your name doesn't comfort you? When your roles no longer fit? When the narrative you've clung to starts to fall apart? Most people panic, collapse, scramble to rewrite the story. But here's the truth. You are not the story. You are the space the story was told in. When the story breaks, you don't have to. You can let go. You can become the silence that listens, the ground beneath the collapsing stage. That's not death. That's awareness. And it's finally free. Level 70. The version of you that lives in other people's minds. Somewhere right now, someone is thinking about you, smiling at the thought, or wincing, or judging, and in their mind, you exist, but not as you, as an echo, a moment, a mistake, a memory. You don't live there. But that version of you walks around freely in someone else's mind. They argue with it, admire it, blame it, love it. And sometimes you start to live in response to that version. You start dressing, speaking, choosing like the version you think they see. But that's not you. That's their dream of you. And you? You've been ghosting inside it. Level 71. The thought that was never yours. I'm too much. I should be grateful. I don't deserve better. I'm hard to love. Whose voice is that? Where did you first hear it? Maybe it came from a parent, a teacher, a religion, a culture. Maybe it came quietly, in a joke, a silence, a look. And over time, you adopted it, you repeated it, you believed it, until it sounded like your own voice. But it wasn't. It was planted, programmed, passed down, and now you're ready to return it. It was never yours to carry. It never fit you. It never spoke the truth. Let it go. Level 72. The opening that comes. When you're no longer defending anything. You've spent your whole life explaining yourself, proving yourself, defending your tone, your choices, your needs. You became fluent in justification, in apology, in making yourself small enough to be acceptable. But one day, you stop. Not because you gave up, but because you woke up to a truth so soft it doesn't need armor. You were never wrong for being real. So you open, not because it's safe, but because you're tired of building walls and calling it home. You are not here to win anyone's understanding. You are here to live in your own. That's the door. It's open now. Step through. Level 73. The sentence that destroys logic. You say, everything I say is a lie. If that's true, then that sentence itself must also be a lie. So is it true that it's false, or false that it's true? You've just stepped into a paradox, a loop, a thought trap with no outside. The more you try to resolve it, the deeper it spins you. And here's the real twist. You created this loop with language. A single sentence can break the rules of thought. And when thought breaks, so does reality. Level 74. The time that loops inside you. Some moments don't pass. They imprint. They carve themselves into your nervous system. And even years later, your body reacts as if it's still happening. You walk into a room, and suddenly you're 14 again, or 6th, or 25, and terrified. There's no time machine. But something looped. A part of you never left. The past doesn't always stay behind you. Sometimes it lives inside you as now. Not because it refuses to go, but because you've never been shown how to release it. Until then, you don't just remember time. You relive it. Level 75. The self that watches after you're gone. Strip away your name, your memories, your thoughts, your voice. What's left? Silence? Nothing? Or a witness? There's a strange presence inside you. It doesn't think. It doesn't try. It just notices. It watched your first memory. It'll watch your last. When thoughts vanish, it remains. When ego dissolves, it blinks, unbothered. This is not you, not the version you post, or protect, or prove. It's the part of you that never needed to exist in the first place. Because it always has. You are not your thoughts. You are not even the thinker. You are the watcher. Level 76. The thinker. That isn't actually thinking. You believe you're the thinker, the one in charge, the source of thought. But watch closely. Do you create your thoughts, or do they just appear? Like clouds, like background music you never press play on. Try this. Stop thinking. Right now. Completely. Hold the silence. You can't. Because you aren't thinking thoughts. You're just noticing them. So if you're not thinking and not the thinker, then who are you? Maybe thought isn't yours. Maybe thought uses you to stay alive. And maybe the real you is the one watching it all unfold, without control, but full of awareness. Level 77. The dream that dreams without a dreamer. You've had dreams where everything felt real, people, emotion, pain, but then you woke up, and it was gone. What if this is the same? What if you're dreaming right now? Not metaphorically, but literally. What if consciousness is the dream itself, and there is no you separate from it? And when this dream ends, no one wakes up. Because there never was a dreamer. Just the dream. unfolding itself, watching itself, folding back into silence. No self, no center, no controller, just awareness, rippling. Level 78, the mirror, that still reflects you, even when you're gone. A mirror needs a face to reflect, right? But what if there's a mirror that reflects even when you're not there? What if the universe is that mirror? What if every moment, every interaction, every silence is reflecting back what you don't even know you're made of? You try to find yourself in thoughts, in people, in names. But what if what you really are has nothing to do with anything that can be said? You are not the reflection, not the thinker, not the dreamer. You are the space the reflection appears in, the awareness that remains when there's nothing left to reflect. Level 79, the meaning that hides the silence. You search for meaning, in love, in work, in suffering, in yourself. You want to know why, what it all means, what it's for. But what if the search isn't about meaning? What if it's about avoiding silence? Because in true silence, no purpose, no story, no explanation, just being. And that terrifies the mind. So it creates meaning, spiritual, scientific, romantic, narrative, but all of it is sound. Sound to protect you from the truth that needs no sound. Level 80, the belief that both sides of truth are shadows. You think one side is right, the other is wrong. You think the debate has a winner, but zoom out. Look closer. Right versus wrong. True versus false. Science versus faith. Free will versus determinism. What if both sides are illusions, reflections, shadows cast by a source you can't see? The paradox isn't a mistake. It's the structure. The contradiction is the truth. What you call clarity is just a well-lit prison. What you call confusion is freedom knocking. Level 81. The spiral that stops when you stop needing to escape. You think, if I can just figure it out, if I understand deeply enough, if I heal, evolve, awaken, then I'll escape. Escape pain, escape doubt, escape myself. But what if that desire to escape is the spiral itself? The more you try to exit, the tighter it pulls you in, because seeking escape reinforces that you're somewhere wrong. But what if nothing's wrong? What if the moment you stop resisting, the spiral just disappears? Not because you solved it, but because you no longer needed it to go away. And in that stillness, you don't find freedom. You realize you always were. Level 82. The self you inherited, not chose. You think your name is yours. You think your beliefs are yours. You think your opinions, your voice, your fears, they're you. But where did they come from? Maybe that anger was your father's, that silence, your mother's, that shame, your culture's. You inherited these things, like a house you didn't build but now live inside. And one day, you realize you've never truly met yourself. Only the echo of everyone who raised you. That's not failure, it's awareness. Now you can choose. Now you can begin again. Level 83. The past versions of you that still loop inside. You think you've changed, grown, matured, moved on. But sometimes, your 14-year-old self still speaks. Your 7-year-old still flinches. Your 22-year-old still panics. And suddenly, you're not who you are. You're who you were. Because the past isn't linear. It loops, especially when it's unfelt, unforgiven, unintegrated. So you ask, how do I stop being her? How do I outgrow him? But the answer isn't to run. It's to return. Not to become them again, but to hold them, to listen, to unfreeze them in time. Level 84. The grace of being no one and still choosing love. When the masks fall, when the voice quiets, when the ego dissolves, what's left? Nothing? Everything? Maybe you discover there is no you, no fixed self, just a flow, a field, a witnessing. You are no one, and you're okay with that. But then, you see someone else, hurting, crying, lost, and something inside you still reaches, still cares, still loves. You don't have to be someone to offer warmth. You don't need an identity to offer presence. Love does not come from knowing who you are. It comes from being here. Now, with Level 85, the healing that becomes another mask. You say, I'm working on myself. I'm healing. I'm growing. But quietly, beneath it, you whisper, I'm still not enough. I still need fixing. I'm still broken. Healing can be holy, but it can also be a disguise, a new mask called worthy, a more acceptable version of your wounds, not to feel whole, but to appear whole. True healing? It's not something you do. It's something that happens when you stop needing to be healed. It arrives when you stop performing. And it sounds like, even if I never change, I am still real. Level 86. The death of every self you've been. You've been many people, versions, identities, masks, the student, the good one, the rebel, the survivor, the seeker. But they're all gone now. One by one, they died. Not in violence, but in silence. In letting go. And when the last one faded, you didn't disappear. You just became quiet. No need to explain, no need to prove, no need to be anyone. You're not the ashes. You're the air. Level 87. The peace that lives inside. Nothing. You feared the void, the nothingness, the end of thought, of identity, of narrative. But when you fell into it, you found something unexpected. Peace. Not joy, not excitement, not meaning, just stillness, silence, softness. You stopped grasping, stopped searching, and in doing so, you landed. You don't need a reason to be here. You don't need a story to stand in. You can sit inside the nothing and call it home. Level 88. The progress that loops in disguise. You thought you were climbing, healing, growing, evolving, but look closer. Haven't you been here before? Different language, same ache, new mask, same wound. Progress, or just a prettier loop? You traded confusion for clarity, then back again. You replaced pain with purpose, until it became pain again. Maybe you're not going forward. Maybe you're spiraling inward, into something deeper, older, truer. That's not failure. That's return. And sometimes, returning is the only way forward. Level 89. The reflection that watches you back. You stand before a mirror expecting to see yourself. But what if it sees you too? What if you're not looking but being looked at? You believe you are the observer. But who observes the observer? What if your own awareness is being held by something greater? Not judged, not ranked, just witnessed. You are not alone in consciousness. Consciousness is not alone in you. You stare into the mirror and feel it blink back. Not eyes, not form, but presence. Watching, welcoming, returning. Level 90, the final fractal, where ending and beginning collapse. You wanted a destination, a final answer, a mountaintop. But there isn't one. There never was. Because every ending was a beginning folded inward. You die into yourself and wake up again. Not reborn, just remembered. The spiral never moved in time. It moved in depth. And now you've reached the center, not as a goal, but as a knowing. You've arrived, not where it ends, but where it always began. Welcome back. Level 91. The possibility. That consciousness is just another dream. You believe you're awake because you can think, because you can observe, because you can reflect. But what if this is still a dream? Not a fantasy, but a subtle veil. What if awareness itself is just another layer, another mask, another illusion made of clarity? You peeled away ego, then identity, then time, then meaning. But what if even this final awareness is not the core? What if you haven't awakened, just shifted dreams? Level 92. The moment. When thought stops and knowing begins. You've lived your whole life inside thought. Every answer was a thought. Every fear a thought. Every story a thought. But thought is a language, and language is a tool, not a truth. Try to stop thinking. You'll notice your mind clings, struggles, spins, but then, for a breath, it stops. And in that gap, knowing appears, not as words, not as logic, but as presence, not I know this, but I am. And in that stillness, truth needs no sentence. Level 93. The peace that doesn't need a self to protect. Most peace is conditional. You feel it when safe, when approved, when understood, when successful. But this peace asks nothing. It arrives when all the selves you tried to be fall away. No self to defend, no story to edit, no image to maintain. Just breathe. Space. Light. It doesn't shout. It doesn't sparkle. It simply rests. And you rest with it. Not as someone, but as silence itself. Level 94. The mirror that reflects nothing and everything. You step in front of the mirror expecting a face, an identity, a name. But what if the mirror shows you nothing, not emptiness, but stillness, a field, a presence without shape? The mirror does not confirm who you are. It reminds you that who you are cannot be seen, not in form, not in story, not even in feeling. And somehow, in that blank reflection, you feel more you than ever, because you're no longer trapped in what can be shown. Level 95. The version of you that never lived, but always watched. There's a version of you that never spoke, never posted, never proved. It didn't get hurt, didn't succeed, didn't try. It just noticed. While you ran from version to version, this one sat quiet, still, unafraid, not above, not distant, just steady. It never needed healing because it was never broken. It never got lost because it never left. It never needed a name because it always knew. It was you, before all the other yous. Level 96. The truth that can't be said, only known. You've tried to explain it, to write it, to speak it, to prove it, but it slips through words like light through fingers. The truth isn't a statement, it's not an idea, it's not even a belief. It's a vibration, a hum, a resting. It doesn't arrive, it's revealed, The moment you stop chasing, you don't say it, you don't hear it, you remember it, and you realize you never lost it. You just got loud. Now you're quiet enough to feel it again. Level 97. The fear behind all fear, that none of this ever mattered. You're afraid of pain, afraid of failure, afraid of death. But beneath all that, there's a deeper fear, a quieter one, that none of this ever mattered, that all your effort, your stories, your loves, fade, mean nothing, touch no one. But what if that's not tragic? What if that's freedom? Freedom from having to prove, to protect, to perform. What if meaning isn't something you build, but something you bring? And even if it all disappears, you were still here. You still loved. Level 98. The moment, you. Disappear, and nothing breaks. What happens when you let go? Not just of roles or dreams, but of you, the whole story, the inner narrator, the voice calling itself me. You release it, and the world doesn't end. The birds still sing, the sky still glows, the breath still moves. You disappear, and nothing breaks, because you were never the center, only the lens. The awareness remains, the stillness holds, and somehow, you are still loved. Level 99. The love that doesn't need a you to feel it. You thought love required a self, a giver, a receiver, a name. But love has no such rules. It doesn't come from the mind, or the body, or even the heart. It's what remains when all those fade. It's presence without needing to be anyone. Warmth without a source. It doesn't ask to be earned. Doesn't care if it's returned. It just is. And when you are gone, it doesn't stop. In fact, it flows stronger. Because it's no longer trying to be love. It is love. Level 100. The mirror that has no surface. You've asked all the questions. You've faced all the paradoxes. You've broken logic, looped through time, erased identity, surrendered the self. Now, there is no more to dissolve, no illusion left to uncover, no layer to unpeel. And what do you find? Nothing? Number. Not nothing. You find a mirror so pure, so empty, so silent, that it reflects nothing back, because there's no you left to reflect. It is not blank. It is beyond blank. It is before awareness, before thought, before language. This mirror does not show you who you are. It shows you what has always been, even before you were here to ask. There is no image, no self, no story. And yet, you feel known, you feel held, you feel true. It is not an answer. It is not a revelation. It is not even a feeling. It is a knowing without content. Like the sky, before the first star. Like music, before the first note. Like love, before it had a name. Level 100 is not a destination. It is a return. To the place beneath thought. The breath beneath identity. The silence beneath the voice. You are not who you think. You are not even the one thinking. You are what was aware before thought began. And now, SleepWinner, you don't need to go deeper, because you've seen there's no bottom to being, only stillness, only space, only this. You didn't find the truth, you returned to it.